What's up, Sales Nation? In this two-part video, we're going to be looking at the principles of influence and how they can help your chances of getting a deal done. So if you're ready to learn the skills of influence so you can get your neighbor to give you a couple of rolls of toilet roll from the 47 boxes that they've hoarded in their house, then you're in the right place. Hit that thumbs up button and let's jump right into it. So the first principle of influence is the principle of reciprocation. This principle describes the phenomenon that when somebody helps us, our brain is wired to want to help them back. When they give, we give in return. This comes from the days that we lived in tribes and really relied on the tribe to survive. Our brains have become programmed over time to put the tribe first before our own selfish needs by giving back an equal amount that we take from it. And this principle of reciprocation seems like something that salespeople like you and I could really use to get deals done, right? You just got to give the prospect a ton of value up front and they'd have to give you the business later on. Well, humans aren't so stupid, right? We're sensitive, we understand this law of reciprocation, so oftentimes people will avoid allowing someone to give them value so that they don't become indebted to them. So in your sales role, what you've got to do, you've got to focus on giving a small amount of value and then closing the next step. Do this over and over and over, rather than giving masses of value up front and then just hoping that the prospect is going to give you what you want later on further down the line. So using the systematic selling process as an example. So we're going to create here a customized message for the prospect. This is going to teach them something new. This is going to open their worldview that their business could be improved. It could be different by working with us. Then because this is a little bit of value, right? We don't want to give them too much. Before we move any further, we're then going to close them on the meeting. We're going to get them to agree that, yes, this could help me in my business. It's worthwhile getting a date and a time in the diary to jump on a call or jump into an in-person meeting. We're taking one step forward, getting the prospect to confirm the value that we've given them and confirm that they actually want this value overtly over a call, email, whatever it is. And then we proceed again forward. So we take one step, we get confirmation, we take one step, we get confirmation, and we do this throughout the sales cycle so that not too much reciprocation debt gets built up. And this process is insanely effective because it starts to build up the principle of consistency, which we're going to cover in a minute. So throughout the systematic selling process, you can see we go from point to point to point and then up back here. Again, same thing. We're going to uncover the rules of the game. We're going to uncover the prospect's reality gap, and then we're going to close the agreement. We're going to get the prospect to agree on the reality gap that we've shown them, and we've covered the reality gap a ton of times on this YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribed and browse some of the other videos on here if you want more information on that. But we go step by step and then again get to this agreement so there's not too much debt built up in the mind of the potential customer. This is just breaking up the sales process into smaller chunks, and it stops the buyer getting overwhelmed with this feeling of reciprocation that might otherwise stop them moving forward with the deal altogether. Next, let's take a look at the principle of consistency. So the principle of consistency exists because of our egos. When we buy into a thought pattern and we start going down one pathway, we move forward and forward and forward. Well, our brains, they don't like to either admit that we might be wrong, or our brains don't want to change our opinions once they've been set. We see this all the time with politics and religion. So here we can see on this slide, most people are brought up with a certain religion or a certain political affiliation, whatever it is. And because of these beliefs that are built into us when we're young, just because of the environment that we grew up in, if you start going to a Catholic church, it's very likely you're going to become a Catholic child, or however you want to describe it. If you start going to the mosque, because that's the environment that you're brought up in, you're more likely to become a Muslim. But the thing is, once we have this initial environmental impact, people then spend the rest of their lives avoiding alternative opinions in case they conflict with how they feel. They go through life in this zigging and zagging of trying to essentially become blatantly ignorant to other people's thoughts and opinions on things. And this process of dodging other people's opinions, whether the opinions are right or wrong, is something that psychologists know through studies to be true. And this leads individuals to, we call it, your religious or your political thoughts and affiliations, but really they're just the ones that you had in your environment that you started off with. So This principle of consistency is one of the reasons why, again, systematic selling is so powerful. So when our prospect gets our customized message right here, and they agree to have a meeting, they've now started down a very linear pathway of moving towards the sale. Whenever they start to move away from this predetermined path that we've laid out for you here with systematic selling, our job as salespeople is just to put them back on it, or if they're not right for the process, if they're not right for our product, we remove them altogether. That's all we're doing. We're just nudging people in the right direction, and if it's not right for them, we're just removing them from the scenario altogether. And as the prospect goes further through the sales process, after you've overtly asked if they agree with what you're saying and they agree with, for example, the reality gap that you've given them and you've helped them beat the status quo, the more that they agree, the more chance they have of closing at the end of it. And just as a quick bonus tip here, the principle of consistency has been shown in scientific studies to be even more effective if the person agrees with you verbally rather than through an email or a text. So make sure you're getting your potential customers on the phone at these points when you're closing the meeting, closing the agreement, or closing the sale, and you're asking them over the phone verbally to agree to it rather than firing off a quick email and getting them to agree via that medium instead. Now, to wrap things up in this video with the final principle of influence, we're going to talk about social proof. Now, the influence principle of social proof exists because our brains are lazy. Out of everything that we eat and drink, our brains take up an incredible amount of those nutrients and glucose, sugar essentially, to run. And this, when we are in a tribe situation or even before that as hunter-gatherers, is a problem. Our brains are designed, where possible, to reduce the amount of energy they need to consume for us to survive, and they do this by having a set of rules that they can fall back on rather than having to do complex processes instead. One of these rules is social proof. So this hardwired rule of social proof essentially means that if everybody's doing something, then it's probably the correct thing to do and we should do it as well. And right now we can clearly see this across the world, but in the UK I've seen it firsthand with the current crisis that we're in. People see in the news that other individuals are going to supermarkets and buying and hoarding food and hand sanitizer and stuff like that. So your brain thinks, well, everybody's doing it, so you start to get a bit of a panic and you feel like you should do it as well. Of course, a few days later, the whole of the UK is out of toilet roll because people are hoarding it like idiots. So with all that said, how can we use the principle of influence to get more deals done? Because that's what we care about as salespeople, right? The best thing you can do is to get testimonials from your best customers. To do this, as soon as you close a deal, ask that new customer over email what benefits they think they're going to get from working with you, or what benefits they've had already throughout the sales process, especially if you're using a sales process that gives a ton of value throughout every step, like what we've got on the screen right here. Get this response over an email and save that document. This is your social proof that you can use to convince new prospects that they should do business with you. Because, well, if all of their peers are working with you, they should do it as well. They're going to be missing out otherwise. And I'm interested, Sales Nation, are you using testimonials throughout your sales process? I want you to leave me a comment either way below. And if a lot of you are not using testimonials but want to start using them, I'll put together a video that shows you exactly how to do that in more detail, if that would be useful. Now, something cool happens when you start asking for testimonials from your best customers. You can start to scale your sales process. Because when your prospecting emails have 4 or 5 text boxes with testimonials in, or videos with testimonials in at the bottom of them, well, you're going to find that your response rates on cold outreach instantly go up. And then every other step of the sales process, you're going to get higher conversions as well. That means that with a little bit of success up front by asking for that first testimonial, it's going to lead you to more testimonials, which will lead you to more new customers and more testimonials, and things start to scale over time. This is when you've been in the same sales role for 5 to 6, 7 years, it actually starts to become easier, not more difficult. And that's when sales gets cool, and that's when people start hitting those $1 million commission checks that we see all the time over at salesman.org with our members there. So there we have it. We've been through the principles of influence of reciprocation, of consistency, and social proof. Now, make sure that you're subscribed, because in tomorrow's video, we're going to run through the next 3 principles of influence, and one of them is way more powerful than the rest of them combined. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to become wildly motivated and hit your sales quota every single time, click the link below, head over to salesman.org. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.